Welcome back 7 Days to Die fans. This is Zith again, and today we're going to pick up where we left off on the last animation video where we had Zombie. We created named Zed, and he had a couple issues with him, one being that his collider was not on the model well enough and we couldn't adjust it. As you can see in the picture right there, kind of floated behind his head. And we had an issue with his texturing in game where he was a little bright, so that's a renderer problem we need to fix real quick. But the purpose of all this is to show you a very important technique, which is basically making your animations not read-only. You want to be able to edit them, so we'll show you how to do that right now. So as you notice, we have the zombie Z at walk model, which is what we dragged in here, and I renamed him Zed. Let's click on the little arrow and open that up. And as you can see, then you see the contents of that FBX file, that import file. It has all the different meshes that we were looking at over here when we opened up Zed here. You see all these different meshes. Here they are. They're all in here. What we're interested in today is the animation only. So here it is. It's in the last entry of that particular file. So what you need to do is click on it, highlight it, and then press Control D, hold Control down and press D to duplicate that file. And as you notice, it's taken a copy out of this package, and I'm going to collapse this package and put it up here called Walk. Now I'm going to rename that to Walk with a capital W, just because that's my naming convention, all my animations with a capital letter. So I've renamed that. Now how do we use that to replace this one? As you can see, this is read-only. So you go to the model, and in the model here you notice that the lowercase w walk is what's here. You could simply drag the new animation over the top of the old one and replace the default one. And this old one's been moved down the list. You can simply highlight it and you can delete it. And then if you want to change the size of the element array here from 2 to just 1, and now you simply have the capital W walk as the default animation and listed number 1 in the animations matrix down here. Okay, so next, let's go back to our animation over here. See, it still says walk read only, but when I click this, it changes it to walk, whichever was over here. Now it's the same animation. The only difference is it's not read only. We can make edits to it. So let's take a quick look at that collider. I'm going to pause this here. Turn the little record off, and you can slide this little red arrow, this indicator here. It's an index of what frame you are currently on. I'm going to go back to the 0 frame here, make sure I'm lined up on the 0 frame. I'm going to go ahead and pick the mesh here, the head. You see it isn't in alignment at keyframe 0 at the very beginning. The collider is behind the head. So all you do is basically pick that mesh that has the collider on it and then slide the arrows into position. And that's going to be about right. Spin it around and look from the front. Yeah, close enough. So at that point in time now, the collider is in the right spot. As we move the red arrow, it's off problem. So pick the midpoint where it's furthest away. Stop there. Make sure you click back on the mesh you want to work with, because if you highlight them all, you're going to move everything. And then again, slide this there. About right. And I'm not going to check it just because this is show you. But now let's go ahead and move the red indicator again. It's kind of hard to grab. Well, I'm having a real hard time grabbing it with this resolution. Let me shut this off and try this again. There it goes. And then it hits down here. Is another looks like an extreme point. And make sure you highlight the mesh again and move it. Now I think he bobbed his head a little bit. We may have to do a little lateral movement as well on that one. Yeah, there we go. And now back to dragging this again. It looks like another extreme point. And making sure the mesh is selected. Bringing it back. You get the idea, right? So I'm just going to skip next to the last one. And you see it's extreme again. Making sure the mesh is selected and bring this sucker back. And then that's still off a little. Yeah. Okay, so now we've done that. So if we hit play now, you see the mesh is doing a better job keeping up. Looks like we got one little spot where it's right about there, which seems to be a little off. So when that happens, just go ahead, find that spot where it's the most off, select the mesh again, and just correct that a little bit. And pretty good. So now it might be better. Yeah, it's tighter. All right. So now we've got that hitbox following the head precisely. Again, you don't have to do all this work if in game it works good enough. If you want to do it right, that's the extra step. Okay. So now let's turn that off and let's go to the next thing. We copied that. What we want to do now is add another animation. So in this package, there is a few more animations in here. As you see, the little prefab box, there's attack, back, walk backwards, go to the left, go to the right. We're going to take this attack one and we're going to open it up, and you see now we have the attack there. We're going to copy that, same thing we did before. Let me turn this off just because I don't like it on. And Control D, I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to rename it with a capital A. There it is. Go back to the main model and drag that. Nope. And I'm going to add one here. Let's see. Bring that up to 2. And then bring it up. Either one. Doesn't matter what order they are. This is your default animation. I'm still kind of playing with this. I often leave it idle when I have one, so it doesn't matter what's up there now, walk or attack. Walk is another good default choice, but that's basically the default when it pops into the game, what it's going to start off with in there, the default animation. So there we have 2 in there now. Now you would think we're done, but we're really not. If we go down here and we click on attack and we click play, all right, that's kind of a cool animation. Let's go check on it though. When we click on attack here, you notice there's more stuff up here. That means that this is not a legacy animation. So we got to individually convert it. Where we converted the first one, we brought the thing in and we converted the whole model and everything to legacy. Here we extracted out a animation out of a .fbx import file that was not already converted. So we need to make that conversion. So that's simple to do. If you click up here, you'll see 3 lines with a little arrow next to it, right up in the corner. Probably never noticed it before. You click on that, you kick the Unity into debug mode. Now that it's in debug on this animation, you notice there's a box that says legacy. You check that box. Now that made the conversion. You have to go back up here again and click back to normal. And now this is the way it should look, right? We talked about that. It should be just wrap mode default in there. So now, when we go ahead and play that, it's not going to look an awful lot different, but when you put it in 7 Days to Die, it's actually going to work, which is the most important part. So now we go back to our model, and we have 2 animations on it as well. We can do the same thing. Here we can add extra colliders to these meshes. We can go ahead and, for this particular animation, you're going to notice we still have that big issue with the head box not being where it's supposed to be, even though we go look back at this one. That one's fixed. We can do that. So as homework, once you do this step, go back in and start moving that collider. Again, now that this is unlocked, you can do all kinds of stuff. You can come down and you can add new properties down here, like particle effects. You could tell them when to start and when to stop during the animation. You can toggle the colliders on and off. All kinds of stuff now that you have the freedom to do it. So one last thing we wanted to cover, and that is simply why this zombie looked so pale in game. Well, the problem is it uses down here the shader that was selected. It used legacy shader bumped spectacular setup. In this particular model, we didn't have a lot of choices as far as the textures and materials. Let's see, we simply had a AO, ambient occlusion, a cavity, which is probably a different naming for the text, the height of it, diff file, and I think that's diff file. Basically, that's the default occluded file, and then the normal map. To keep your zombies small, you can play with adding all of these. They increase the size of your zombie. I generally use just these 2. Sometimes if there's a metallic, I use that, especially on weapons and so on and so forth. But let's go ahead and go back and check that out again. Get to the mesh renderer here. So all you have to basically do is change this and go down and use legacy. Legacy shaders, bump diffuse. and then you can go in clicking on this here. That'll pop up a window like this, and you can adjust how bright it is. Usually zombies are somewhere in this area. So good, but that darkens the whole thing up, gives you the texturing, and should look much better in the game as well. Okay, all right, well, that's all that I wanted to cover. Oh, that's actually yep, there it goes. It is Bump TV. So sometimes if you ever click on this button and leave it on, your changes will not be saved. It's okay to have this one on. It'll still save the changes. That's what I thought might have happened, but it didn't. So there you go. The zombie's already ready to put into game. Next time we're going to cover how to make your own animations, 2 different ways for this model, and we'll go from there. All right, great talking with you all, and I'll see you at the next video.